Assets, of course, under management, at least with some sort of ESG threshold in them, have grown dramatically over the last 2 or 3 years. But one key has been how to actually measure corporations effectively within their peer groups, across peer groups, because the metrics are very hard to define. Tell me about this effort here, and is it at all going to actually help in that effort?
Yeah, so our announcement is a urgent calling by MSCI to investors worldwide to embrace more fully and to make change more significant in ESG integration into their portfolios. And the reason is that, the demands of society for better social justice, social inclusion, protection of the environment, better governance of institutions and the like has been heard, but is slow progress. It is not at the pace that is required. In our case, it is not at the pace that is required to protect financial assets in portfolios of our clients around the world. So we are sounding the alarm bells that if you are an investment institution and you're not embracing this and taking it into account, it's going to be at your own peril, because your portfolios are going to underperform dramatically, because there is a common repricing of financial assets and a common reallocation of assets around the world according to the ESG criteria, especially climate change. So MSCI has been a provider of tools to address those for more than 2 decades, we and our predecessor companies. And we have an array of tools and are building even more so. But the question is the pace of adoption of those tools.
All right, so tell me, what are you actually offering now that you weren't previously that's going to help with this adoption?
So first of all, we rate 15,000 issuers of stocks and bonds along ESG criteria. We're the largest rating agency according to ESG in the world. Secondly, we take those ratings and we incorporate them into ESG indices. So we reweight the stocks of an index based on the ranking that they have on the ratings. So that has been very popular around the world. 3, we conduct extensive research that when a client of ours comes to us and says, I want to exclude the following companies, it's not easy to just simply exclude. There's not a lot of pure plays. There are a lot of gradations of gray. So we have an enormous research to be able to describe what those exclusions should be, and that we have built risk models that take into account ESG in the ex-ante performance and risk of portfolios and the like. So we've done that in equities, in fixed income. We are beginning to do that in real estate and in private asset classes, particularly private equities.
How about these companies that are doing business all around the world? Are your standards going to be different based on each country? How are you really evaluating how they're following some of these standards? Are you taking the company's word for it?
Well, first of all, these are all universal values, right? We're not going to ask a company to violate local law in a particular instance, but there are a lot of few laws that say, you can go ahead and pollute a river, right? So it's the opposite. There are a lot of laws that protect, the environment, for example. There are a lot of laws that describe, or regulations that describe governance of companies. The problem is that they're not adhered to, many times. So these are universal values. We're going to apply them all over the world to every kind of company, every kind of issuer of bonds, every kind of real estate, every kind of private company, or anything like that. So that is what it goes into the tools that we make available to institutional investors worldwide. So this is not a national phenomenon. This is a global, trend that we need to incorporate.
But to Courtney's point, the reporting of your sustainable packaging efforts, right? It's not uniform. So when does that come along? And in the meantime, do we just have to believe them that they did what they said they were going to do?
No, we have huge and extensive data that we collect. About half of the data is company-reported data.
In like an 8K or a 10K?
All the filings with government agencies, all the filings with, in their website, in their descriptions in 10Ks and 10Qs and all of that. Now, we don't take the company's word only, because they're not going to say we discriminate against women, right? We pollute rivers. They're not going to say that. So half of the data that we use for ratings is actually obtained through third-party sources. So, for example, we're one of the largest users of information that comes out of courts of law in order to understand any kind of lawsuit on a particular company, any kind of regulatory agencies like, environmental agencies.
But you can get an accurate representation of a corporation's carbon footprint? I mean, is that really possible?
Eventually it will be, and we're beginning to go in that direction. For now, mostly it's a directional concept, and then eventually it will become very metrics driven, right? But, it's an evolution.
And Henry, what do you say to those who believe this is just a fad and point to announcements like yours today or the one we got a little over a week ago from BlackRock and say, really, it's nothing more than window dressing, making you look good?
Yeah, this is one of the things that we point out in our principles. This is not a fad. This is a permanent change in the way capitalism works. And by the way, we're doing this to protect capitalism. Otherwise, government intervention is going to come, socialist ideas are going to come, and the like. So it's not against capitalism. It's about, dealing with the externalities that are created in capitalism. So this is a trend. It's a trend that is not only in companies, not only in issuers, it's in every other institution, whether it's religious, whether it's governmental, whether it's political or media. There is a trend that society is making all these institutions accountable to their behavior, and a lot of it is driven by the transparency of information that is coming out. Society hasn't changed. You would have been intolerant of a transgression 100 years ago, except that you didn't know it. It was not prevalent. Now, today, you can find out very quickly if somebody is doing something wrong, and therefore society's tolerance towards that is very limited, right?
Henry, thank you. It's an issue we're following closely. We certainly appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.